Australia's climate is governed largely by its size and by the hot, sinking air of the subtropical high-pressure belt. This moves north and south with the seasons, so that the rainfall pattern over Australia is highly seasonal. Australia's rainfall is the lowest of the 7 continents, but it is variable, with frequent droughts lasting several seasons, thought to be caused in part by the El Niño-Southern Oscillation. Because Australia is a small continent, separated from polar regions by the Southern Ocean, it is not subject to the movements of frigid polar air that sweep over northern hemisphere continents during winter. Consequently, its winter is relatively mild, so that there isn't the great contrast between summer and winter temperatures there is in the northern continents. Yet in many parts of the country, seasonal highs and lows can be considerable. Temperatures have ranged from above 50 degrees Celsius to well below zero. Nonetheless, minimum temperatures are moderated. The El Niño-Southern Oscillation is associated with seasonal abnormality in many areas in the world. Australia is one of the continents most affected and experiences extensive droughts alongside considerable wet periods. Occasionally a dust storm will blanket a region, and there are reports of the occasional tornado. Tropical cyclones, heat waves, bushfires and frosts in the country are also associated with the Southern Oscillation. Rising levels of salinity and desertification in some areas is ravaging the landscape. Climate change in Australia is a highly contentious issue. Temperatures in the country have risen following an increasing trend of global warming between the years of 1910 to 2004 by approximately 0.7 degrees Celsius. Overnight minimum temperatures have warmed more rapidly than daytime maximum temperatures in recent years. The late 20th century warming has been largely attributed to the increased greenhouse effect. According to the Bureau of Meteorology, 80% of the land has less than 600 millimeters of rainfall per year and 50% has even less than 300 millimeters. As a whole, Australia has a very low annual average rainfall of 419 millimeters. Precipitation. Rain. More than 80% of the continent has an annual rainfall of less than 600 millimeters. Only Antarctica receives less rainfall than Australia. A place in and near Lake Eyre would only receive 81 millimeters of rain annually. Another place, Trudan in Abor in South Australia, from 1893 to 1936, received, in average, 104.9 millimeters of precipitation. From one extreme to another, parts of the far north Queensland coast annually average over 4,000 millimeters, with the Australian annual record being 12,461 millimeters, set at the summit of Mount Bellenden in 2000. There are 4 main factors that contribute to the dryness of the Australian land mass: cold ocean currents off the west coast, low elevation of landforms, dominance of high-pressure systems, shape of the land mass. The average annual rainfall in the Australian desert is low, ranging from 81 to 250 millimeters per year. Thunderstorms are relatively common in the region, with an average of 15 to 20 thunderstorms per annum. Summer daytime temperatures range from 32 to 40 degrees Celsius. In winter, this falls to 18 to 23 degrees Celsius. The southern parts of Australia get the usual westerly winds and rain-bearing cold fronts that come when the high-pressure systems move towards northern Australia during winter. Cold snaps may bring frosts inland, though temperatures near the coast are mild and near mild all year round. Summers in southern Australia are generally dry and hot with coastal sea breezes. During a lengthy dry spell, hot and dry winds from the interior can cause bushfires in some southern and eastern states, though most commonly Victoria and New South Wales. The tropical areas of northern Australia have a wet summer because of the monsoon. During the wet, typically October to April, humid northwesterly winds bring showers and thunderstorms. Occasionally, tropical cyclones can bring heavy rainfall to tropical coastal regions, which is also likely to reach further inland. After the monsoonal season, the dry season comes, which brings mostly clear skies and milder conditions. Low rate of evaporation from this very cool body of water result in little evaporation occurring. Hence, rain clouds are sparsely formed and very rarely do they form long enough for a continuous period of rain to be recorded. Australia's arid, semi-arid zone extends to this region. The absence of any significant mountain range or area of substantial height above sea level results in very little rainfall caused by orographic uplift. In the east, the Great Dividing Range limits rain moving into inland Australia. Australia has a compact shape, and no significant bodies of water penetrate very far inland. This is important inasmuch as moist winds are prevented from penetrating inland, so keeping rainfall low. Snow in Australia. Snow falls frequently on the highlands near the east coast, in the states of Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania, and in the Australian Capital Territory. There is a regular snow season in several areas which have seasonal ski tourism industries. Snow also falls with some regularity on the Great Dividing Range as far north as Stanthorpe, Queensland, and in isolated parts of South Australia and Western Australia, but outside these areas, snow is an extremely rare occurrence. Snow has also fallen on Uluru and near Alice Springs on at least one occasion. Snow at sea level is occasionally recorded on mainland Australia, but is more frequent in Tasmania, where snowfalls at sea level can occur during the winter months. Snow has been recorded across most of Tasmania, though it is rare on the northern coast at sea level. Snow is rare in the southernmost capitals like Melbourne and Hobart, falling less than once every 5 years, and in the other capitals it is unknown. However, there are extensive, well-developed ski fields in the Great Dividing Range, a few hours' drive from Melbourne and Sydney. Light snow generally falls every winter in Canberra, however, and other cities that may receive regular seasonal snowfalls include Orange, Lithgow and Katoomba in New South Wales. The occasional cold snap, caused by cold air drifting north from Antarctica, can cause significant snowfall in rural areas, as well as major cities such as Hobart, Melbourne's outer mountain suburbs, and Canberra. Such occasions are rare, but have occurred in 1958, 1965, 1986, 2005 and 2015. The 1965 event causing snow to fall as far north as Eungella, near Mackay in tropical Queensland. Extreme snow events have also produced snow as far northwest as Longreach in Queensland and in the ranges near Alice Springs, and also in lowland towns such as Dubbo and Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. The frequency and intensity of such events has been decreasing significantly over the past 40 years, and the most northerly occurrence of snow in this time frame has been the Bunya Mountains in southern Queensland. States and territories. Australian Capital Territory. Because of its elevation and distance from the coast, the Australian Capital Territory experiences a continental climate. Unlike many other Australian cities whose climates are moderated by the sea, Canberra is notorious for hot, dry summers and cold winters with occasional fog and frequent frosts. Many of the higher mountains in the territory's southwest are snow-covered for at least part of the winter. Thunderstorms can occur between October and March, and annual rainfall is 623 mm, with rainfall highest in spring and summer and lowest in winter. The highest maximum temperature recorded in the ACT was 42.8 degrees Celsius at Acton on the 11th of January 1939. The lowest minimum temperature was -14.6 degrees Celsius at Gudgeonby on the 11th of July 1971. New South Wales. Over half of New South Wales has an arid, a semi-arid climate. However, the eastern portion has a temperate climate, ranging from humid subtropical to the central coast and most of Sydney, and oceanic to the south coast. The Snowy Mountains region in the southeast falls in the alpine climate, highland climate zone, with cool to cold weather all year around and snowfalls in the winter. Further inland, the climate gets semi-arid and a desert climate towards the western part of the state. The weather in the south of the state is generally hot in summer and cool in the winter, as the seasons are well defined in the south. The hottest New South Wales climate region is the northwest part of the state. Seasons are not well defined in the north, where summers are hot and can be wet and winters are cooler and drier. The coldest region is the Snowy Mountains, where the snow and frost continues for quite long durations during the winter months. The highest maximum temperature recorded was 49.8 degrees Celsius at Menindee in the state's west on the 10th of January 1939. The lowest minimum temperature was -23.0 degrees C at Charlotte Pass on the 29th of June 1994 in the Snowy Mountains. This is also the lowest temperature recorded in the whole of Australia excluding Australian Antarctic Territory. Rainfall varies throughout the state. The far northwest receives the least, less than 180 mm annually, while the east receives between 600 to 1,200 mm of rain. Northern Territory. The Northern Territory has two distinctive climate zones. The northern end, including Darwin, has a tropical savanna climate with high humidity and two seasons, the wet and dry season. During the dry season nearly every day is warm and sunny, and afternoon humidity averages around 30%. There is very little rainfall between May and September. In the coolest months of June and July, the daily minimum temperature may dip as low as 14 degrees Celsius but very rarely lower, and frost has never been recorded. The wet season is associated with tropical cyclones and monsoon rains. The majority of rainfall occurs between December and March, when thunderstorms are common and afternoon relative humidity averages over 70% during the wettest months. On average, more than 1,570 mm of rain falls in the north. Thunderstorms can produce spectacular lightning displays. The central region is the desert center of the country, which includes Alice Springs and Uluru, and is arid or semi-arid with little rain usually falling during the hottest months from October to March. Central Australia receives less than 250 mm of rain per year. The highest maximum temperature recorded in the territory was 48.3 degrees Celsius at Finca on 1 and 2 January 1960. The lowest minimum temperature was -7.5 degrees Celsius at Alice Springs on the 12th of July 1976. Queensland. Because of its size, there is significant variation in climate across the state. Low rainfall and hot summers are typical for the inland west, a monsoonal wet season in the far north, and warm temperate conditions along the coastal strip. Inland and in southern ranges low minimum temperatures are experienced. The climate of the coastal strip is influenced by warm ocean waters, keeping the region free from extremes of temperature and providing moisture for rainfall. There are 5 predominant climatic zones in Queensland, based on temperature and humidity: hot humid summer, warm humid summer, hot dry summer, mild winter. Hot dry summer, cold winter, temperate, warm summer, cold winter. However, most of the Queensland populace experience two weather seasons, a winter period of rather warm temperatures and minimal rainfall, and a sultry summer period of hot, sticky temperatures and higher levels of rainfall. The highest maximum temperature observed in the state is 49.5 degrees Celsius at Birdsville on the 24th of December 1972. The temperature of 53.1 degrees Celsius at Cloncurry on 16 January 1889 is not considered official. The figure quoted from Birdsville is the next highest, so that record is considered as being official. The lowest minimum temperature is -10.6 degrees Celsius at Stanthorpe on the 23rd of June 1961 and at the Hermitage on the 12th of July 1965. South Australia. The majority of the state has the arid and semi-arid climates. The southern coastal parts of the state have a Mediterranean climate with mild wet winters and hot dry summers. The highest rainfall occurs along the southern coasts and the Mount Lofty ranges in the vicinity of Mount Lofty. The lowest rainfall occurs in the Lake Eyre Basin, where the average annual totals are less than 150 mm and possibly even 100 mm. Most of the rain in the southern districts of the state fall during the winter months, when the subtropical high-pressure belt is displaced to the north over the Australian continent. South Australia's mean temperature range is 29 degrees Celsius in January and 15 degrees Celsius in July. Daily temperatures in parts of the state in January and February can be up to 48 degrees Celsius. The highest maximum temperature was recorded as 50.7 degrees Celsius at Oodnadatta on the 2nd of January 1960, which is the highest official temperature recorded in Australia. The lowest minimum temperature was -8.0 degrees Celsius at Gingala on the 20th of July 1976. Tasmania. Tasmania has a cool temperate climate with 4 distinct seasons. Summer lasts from December to February, when the average maximum sea temperature is 21 degrees Celsius, and inland areas around Launceston reach 24 degrees Celsius. Other inland areas are much cooler, with Liawini, located on the Central Plateau, one of the coldest places in Australia, with temperatures in February ranging between 4 to 17 degrees Celsius. Autumn lasts between March and May and experiences changeable weather, where summer weather patterns gradually take on the shape of winter patterns. The winter months are between June and July and are generally the wettest and coolest months in the state, with most high-lying areas receiving considerable snowfall. Winter maximums are 12 degrees Celsius on average along coastal areas and 3 degrees Celsius on the Central Plateau. Thanks to a series of cold fronts from the Southern Ocean, spring is a season of transition, where winter weather patterns begin to take the shape of summer patterns, with snowfall still common up until October. Spring is generally the windiest time of the year, with afternoon sea breezes starting to take effect on the coast. Rainfall in Tasmania follows a complicated pattern rather analogous to that found on large continents at the same latitude in the northern hemisphere. On the western side, rainfall increases from around 1,458 mm at Strahan on the coast up to 2,690 mm at Cradle Valley in the Highlands. There is a strong winter maximum in rainfall. January and February typically averages between 30 to 40% the rainfall of July and August, though even in the driest months rain usually falls on every second day, and the number of rainy days per year is much greater than on any part of the Australian mainland. Further east in the Lake Country, annual rainfall declines to around 900 mm, whilst in the Midlands, annual rainfall is as low as 4 450 mm at Ross and generally below 600 mm. The eastern part of Tasmania has more evenly distributed rainfall than in the west, and most months receive very similar averages. The densely populated northern coast is much drier than the western side, with annual rainfall ranging from 666 mm in Launceston to 955 mm in Burnie in the northwest and 993 mm in Scottsdale located further to the east. Most rain falls in winter, and in summer the average can be as low as 31 mm per month in Launceston. The east coast is wetter than the Midlands, with an average annual rainfall ranging from 775 mm in St Helens to around 640 mm in Swansea. Here the rainfall is evenly distributed over the year but can be very erratic, as heavy rainfalls from the warm Tasman Sea are quite frequent, whereas a 3-day fall of 125 mm occurs only once every 50 years on the north coast. It occurs on average once every 4 or 5 years around Swansea and Bacino, and on 7 to 8 June 1954. There were many falls as large as 230 mm in 2 days in that area. The East Coast is sometimes called the Sun Coast because of its sunny climate. Several sections of inland Tasmania, together with Flinders Island, were declared drought-affected areas by the state government in 2007. The highest recorded maximum temperature in Tasmania was 42.2 degrees Celsius at Scamander on the 30th of January 2009. During the 2009 Southeastern Australia heatwave, Tasmania's lowest recorded minimum temperature was -13 degrees Celsius on the 30th of June 1983, at Butler's Gorge, Shannon and Taralia, Victoria. Victoria has a varied climate despite its small size. It ranges from semi-arid and hot in the northwest, to temperate and cool along the coast. Victoria's mainland feature, the Great Dividing Range, produces a cooler mountain climate in the centre of the state. Victoria's southernmost position on the Australian mainland means it is cooler and wetter than other mainland states and territories. The coastal plain south of the Great Dividing Range has Victoria's mildest climate. Air from the Southern Ocean helps reduce the heat of summer and the cold of winter. Melbourne and other large cities are located in this temperate region. The Mallee and Upper Wimmera are Victoria's warmest regions, with hot winds blowing from nearby deserts. Average temperatures top 30 degrees Celsius during summer and 15 degrees Celsius in winter. Victoria's highest maximum temperature of 48.8 degrees Celsius was recorded in Hopeton on the 7th of February 2009 during the 2009 Southeastern Australia heatwave. A screen temperature of 50.7 degrees Celsius was recorded on the 7th of January 1906 in Mildura, the Victorian Alps in the northeast of the coldest part of Victoria. The Alps are part of the Great Dividing Range mountain system extending east-west through the centre of Victoria. Average temperatures are less than 9 degrees Celsius in winter and below 0 degrees Celsius in the highest parts of the ranges. The state's lowest minimum temperature of -11.7 degrees Celsius was recorded at Omeo on the 13th of June 1965, and again at Falls Creek on the 3rd of July 1970. Rainfall. Victoria is the wettest Australian state after Tasmania. Rainfall in Victoria increases from north to south, with higher averages in areas of high altitude. Median annual rainfall exceeds 1,800 mm in some parts of the northeast but is less than 250 mm in the Mallee. Rain is heaviest in the Otway Ranges and Gippsland in southern Victoria and in in the mountainous northeast. Snow generally falls only in the mountains and hills in the center of the state. Rain falls most frequently in winter, but summer precipitation is heavier. Rainfall is most reliable in Gippsland and the Western District, making them both leading farming areas. Victoria's highest recorded daily rainfall was 375 mm at Tanner Bryn in the Otway Ranges on the 22nd of March 1983. Western Australia. The southwest corner of the state has a Mediterranean climate. The area was originally heavily forested, including large stands of the karri, one of the tallest trees in the world. This agricultural region of Western Australia is in the top 9 terrestrial habitats for terrestrial biodiversity, with a higher proportion of endemic species than most other equivalent regions. Due to the offshore Lewin current, the area numbers in the top 6 regions for marine biodiversity, containing the most southerly coral reefs in the world. Average annual rainfall varies from 300 mm at the edge of the wheat belt region to 1,400 mm in the wettest areas near North Cliff, but in the months of November to March evaporation exceeds rainfall, and it is generally very dry. Plants must be adapted to this, as well as the extreme poverty of all soils. A major reduction in rainfall has been observed, with a greater number of rainfall events in the summer months. The central 4/5 of the state is semi-arid desert and is lightly inhabited, with the only significant activity being mining. Annual rainfall averages about 200 to 250 mm, most of which occurs in sporadic torrential falls related to cyclone events in summer months. An exception to this is the northern tropical regions. The Kimberley has an extremely hot monsoonal climate with average annual rainfall ranging from 500 to 1,500 mm, but there is a very long, almost rainless season from April to November. 85% of the state's runoff occurs in the Kimberley, but because it occurs in violent floods and because of the insurmountable poverty of the generally shallow soils, the only development has taken place along the Ord River. Australia's tropical, subtropical location and cold waters off the western coast make most of Western Australia a hot desert with aridity a marked feature of a greater part of the continent. These cold waters produce precious little moisture needed on the mainland. A 2005 study by Australian and American researchers investigated the desertification of the interior, and suggested that one explanation was related to human settlers who arrived about 50,000 years ago. Regular burning by these settlers could have prevented monsoons from reaching interior Australia. Snowfall in the state is rare, and typically only in the Stirling Range near Albany, as it is the only mountain range far enough south and with sufficient elevation. More rarely, snow can fall on the nearby Parongarup Range. Snow outside these areas is a major event. It usually occurs in hilly areas of southwestern Australia. The most widespread low-level snow occurred on the 26th of June 1956 when snow was reported in the Perth Hills, as far north as Wongan Hills and as far east as Salmon Gums. However, even in the Stirling Range, snowfalls rarely exceed 5 centimeters and rarely settle for more than one day. The highest observed maximum temperature of 50.5 degrees Celsius was recorded at Mardy Station on the 19th of February 1998. The lowest minimum temperature recorded was -7.2 degrees Celsius at Airbird Observatory on the 17th of August 2008.